Grace, I know it is late, but y'all know how I do. I'm a night owl these days. Grace to all of you. And let's see how many of you I can share with tonight. Etienne Lashley, hey, I hope to see you. I need a weekend with you, man. Let me know if you're coming in for resurrection. Hello. I am the dean's office. How are you? I see my mom is here. Hi, Mom. Riz, what's up, girlie? What's going on, everybody? I'll be on tomorrow for sure, but I didn't want to let today go past without saying something to you. So hello to all of you. Grace, Prophet Elaine, takes all your people. Let them know that I'm on. Jay Lamont, I owe you one. Oh, I owe you one. You wait till I get off this line. Hey, Lynn B 1975, I see you Sunday morning. I've got a word. Passion Week is upon us. What's up, everybody? Yo, text a few people. Let them know that I'm on. Venner James, I need you at church on Resurrection. Chris Carter, hi, my son, Bree. Hey, baby girl. Nay, what's up? Evangelist Nikki, hey. Co-Pastor Brinkley, what's going on, darling? Pastor Josh forwarded me your message. You got it. What's up, everybody? I'm actually shocked that there are as many of you up as is or are, or however you say it. All right. Let some people know I'm on. We had about 230. Let's go ahead and get up so that I can share with you what's on my heart. It is an awesome time. Passion Week is upon us, and so I'm a reflector, and I got this from Chandler Moore. He bought this from me, this sweater. So I think Maverick has them or something. I'm in catch-up mode for a lot of reasons and in a lot of ways, so be patient with me, all of you guys. I am Nate Jefferson. Incredible grace to you, man. Prophet Jazz, hey there. What's up? All right, y'all night owls too, like me. Hey, this what's up. I appreciate it. All right, here we go. Woo-wee. All right. Lady Tashira, hey, sweetheart. I heard prayer was amazing today. Sister Desi, we're patient, not sleepy. I love that. I am Dr. Sierra Jones. Incredible grace to you, woman of God. Yeah, this is a fancy. Well, this is not a fancy Coke. This is Coke Vanilla. I prefer the cherry vanilla one, but we're not gonna get into that. We're just gonna do what you need to do. Breezy, I hope to see you Sunday morning. That was vanilla. All right, anyway, you're not going to distract me. The devil's a liar. All right. I am in deep reflection. I have a gift of reflection. I don't know if it's inherited or if it's something that I've developed in life, if it came from my mama, daddy, or whatever, but I have it. I like to think. And I like to think deep, and I like to reflect. I like to rehearse. I like to consider. I like to measure. It's how I am. And it is a gift because in reflection, a part of what you end up doing. Hey, Elder Jamila, hope to see you Sunday morning. It lends you the right and the reward of growth and maturity. Nothing matures without reflection. And it doesn't mean that you have to have resentment or regret about what you're reflecting about. But it does, in fact, mean that you get to learn and or highlight how you could have done it differently, seen it differently, handled it differently, approached it differently. But tonight I want to put some emphasis on entered it differently and exited it differently. I'm getting ready to start my, hey Kenza, love you honey, my study for the weekend. I ought to preach a couple times Sunday. KC, hey. But in so doing, I was thinking about the discipline, the art, the power of reflection. There's a lot of talk going on right now about self-care, right? And we think about um, manicures, and we think about pedicures and massages. Very often we don't think about the power of reflection and looking at circumstances as they exist in our head and hearts, and trying to figure out and unpiece and unpack how they affected us and impacted us. Today, in reflection, y'all know how I am. Y'all have trained me well in the church. So I know the numbers are going to get a bit shysty. But Shante Ford, happy birthday, honey. Today, in reflection for me, I was thinking about something. And I was like, oh my God, thousands of people that follow my teaching and follow my train of thought or my thought life would be blessed by this, because it came up in my life. Tonight, what I was thinking about was the danger of trauma bonds. Trauma bonds. I am a deliverance minister, so by virtue of that, I do understand the science, the technicalities, the legalities of soul ties. But I was thinking about trauma bonds and the complexities of those. So I'm going to give you a minute to dismiss yourself and go and find something else to do, because I know you don't want to think about this right now. I'll leave this up for a few hours so that you can consider it in your life. But there is a such thing as a trauma bond. It may feel like romance. It may feel like a friendship. It may feel like chemistry. It may feel like understanding. It may feel like symbioticness, or being able to relate in that way. But there's a such thing called a trauma bond. And what a trauma bond is, now this is going to work in dualism. You hear me? Listen. People legitimately, in our humanity, we do connect at the point and the place of pain. It's not the only place that we connect, but we legitimately do connect at the place of pain. I think the best preachers in the world understand pain. I think the best teachers in the world understand pain. I think the best friends in the world show up when they are sensitive to pain. I think the best husbands, the best wives, the best mothers, the best fathers, I think the way they show up in our lives and in our spaces don't assume our pain and don't project theirs. And I think that they find a way to attempt intimacy at a point or at a place of pain. That's just period. Some of the most genius preachers in the world are not the best theologians or the best homilists, but they understand the human condition and the human plight. And because they understand the human condition and the human plight, they reach and they preach to a place of pain because it is a universal language. Pain is something that every human being understands. Black, white, straight, gay, Republican, Democrat, Baptist, Pentecostal, oneness, Trinitarian. Everybody has had something that has hurt or harmed them. But the problem is pain is not the only place we should connect. And pain should not be the end all be all of our connection. It can be the initiation point and it can be the starting point, but pain is not strong enough to keep us in a relationship that ends up being beneficial to us for our future and who we're supposed to be in God's mind and in our world. But you'd be surprised. My mom is a discipler as I am, and some of you on here understand discipleship, so maybe you will be shocked to learn this, but there's a lot of people who, for a lot of reasons, are content with remaining in pain. That pain has become, in a very weird way and very inordinate way, comfortable for them. It justifies their rebellion, their perspectives, their resistance, their insecurities. It also becomes a premise for which they launch their attacks on others, that they don't get to be held accountable, because here is a major issue that I find in the body of Christ and people in general is that, when people are hurt, they think they're right, that the presence of pain is synonymous with accurate view and accurate perspective and accurate purview. And it's not always true. You can be hurt and dead wrong. And the fact that your pain is real to you does not mean that your perspective is right or accurate or even trustworthy or valuable. But there's a whole generation, I submit to you, that think that because they're hurt, they're right. And because something hurt their feelings, that it gives them the right of way or the right of passage into superior perspective and or opinion. And then, dare I say, volume and all of that. So I was thinking about trauma bonds today and how many people are being held back, how many people are being restrained, restricted, and how they could be bearing fruit, and how they could be maturing. Russell, can't wait to see you in Sunday morning, and how they could be maturing and growing. One of the things that I've learned, and I honor the Lord for teaching me this very early, is the dangers, the cancers of arrested development. And a trauma bond is an easy way to arrested development. It's how you get older and weaker, as opposed to older and not stronger. It's how you experience anniversaries in a marriage, and you're not getting closer. You're actually getting more distant. You've been married 20, 30, 40 years, and you become roommates in a home, but there's no change or shift in the way you understand or comprehend each other. And because you've gotten common and familiar, you assume each other because of that particular issue. So arrested development is a real psychological issue. I think it's a spiritual issue. But the problem is in life, you're going to learn at some point that you have to choose to grow. You have to choose to grow. You have to make deliberate, daily, intentional, measured, calculated decisions to grow. No matter what happens to you, what they do, what they say, what your circumstances or the environments around you are, you have to make choices to grow. Those choices will not be easy. They're going to be extraordinarily complicated. And you have to make hard choices to grow. And a part of that may mean subsiding your immediate feeling. I hope this is not boring you. Putting your immediate feeling or the immediate impact on the side in order to see if there is an opportunity to grow. I love you too, Kevin, into the future and to who you're going to be. So here's what a trauma bond is. I met you. You met me where we are. How we are. Nate, I have not forgotten about you, Evangelist. I promise you. Please forgive me. My kids are on spring break, so I've been crazy busy. Anyway, a trauma bond is this. Pastor Anthony Spencer, I'm glad you're alive. Hey, I could shout there. I'm going to keep it where it is. A trauma bond is I met you where you are. You met me where I am. And where I am and where you are comes with a specific vocabulary, a specific understanding, a specific deficit, a specific need, a specific desire. All right. So we meet each other where we are, and we start to engage frequently, infrequently, consistently, inconsistently, with transparent communication or vague communication. But we start to develop what we feel like between you and I is some form of normality. But where we join and where we tie is at a point of mutual hurt or mutual offense or mutual experience or mutual pain or mutual whatever. And I've learned that in my life and in my career and in my journey that it has been quite easier in some ways to see unity over offense than vision. There are people that I introduced to each other that didn't like each other initially until they both got mad with me. And then they all of a sudden became bro and sis. And I've also introduced people to speakers and ministry gifts and business owners. And you look on the flyers and the only thing they got in common is me. But once they got offended with me, they turned. And so you find that there is a very toxic way to join over offense and or pain and or anger or all of that stuff. So the thing with the trauma bond is this. If the only thing we have in common is what hurt us, and if the only thing we have in common is what pained us, and if the only thing we have in common for real at its depth and at its core is what we're mad and or angry at or what we grieve by, what happens when we heal? You see, joining together at the point in the place of pain, is not necessarily bad initially. The problem is there's no authenticity or there's no longevity in it. And so because of that, what we've done is we've sentenced ourselves to a crippling, debilitating, paralyzing type of life, because if one of us heals, then the necessity of conversation and the necessity of validation and the necessity of involvement and being around is going to decrease. There are people that need you to remain broken. Hey, Chrissy, I see you, beautiful. There are people who are going to profit off of your dysfunction and your malfunction and your pathology, the continual cycle of where you are and who you are. There's a story in the book of Acts about a woman, and the Bible says that she brought her masters much gain by her soothsaying, which means that in her darkness and in the depths of who she was not, and in her brokenness and in her fragility, and in the worst parts and pieces of who she was, there were people that made bets on her, that were reliant on her, profiting on her, that found some way to find gain off of her lack of healing. Her infirmity was their prosperity. And I wonder if there are people who are dating, who are befriending, who are business partnering, spiritual mommying, spiritual fathering, spiritual nieces and nephewing, because I don't know what the Hades that is, and all that stuff. And they're doing so around a mutual place of pain that is the only thing that they have in common. It's not DNA. It's not direction. It's not a desire for wisdom. It's not a mutual drive and ambition toward the future. It's about misery-loving company. And it's about being able to find some type of common ground in a wound and in a place that does not demand accountability. You know what I've learned over the last 20 so years in ministry? There are some wounds that don't desire accountability. Like if I feel like my wounding is deep and justifiable and is there in my heart, in my mind, in my mouth, even in my talk, I don't want to be held accountable for it. And then, Lord help me to say this the right way. We get these words, right? These trendy words like gaslight or narcissist. There are people who are accusing people of narcissism who still don't know what the heck that is. And it's just a culture of a lack of accountability. And so anybody that labels it, names it, designates it, calls it for what it is, ends up being somehow psychologically classed as something that makes me justified in my victimization of an event or a circumstance and or an action. Everybody thinks everybody's gaslighting. And the problem is 5 years ago, nobody was using that phrase. At this point, everybody's using it. In 5 more years, nobody's going to be using it again. We just all look for a reason to remain unchanged and untransformed. That's what's addictive. Is sameness. Sameness is addictive. I'll preach later. So in a trauma bond, we have a point of pain that becomes a connection point where we feel like because we hurt in similar areas or because of similar things, we think that we're close, but it's deceptive. And this is important to me because although I disagree with a lot of the apostolic prophetic movement people, I disagree with a lot of the charismatic stuff. I disagree with a lot of Pentecostal stuff. I have a lot of disagreements with them. I still belong to all of them, but I disagree with a lot of this stuff. One of the things I do agree with is that the devil has wiles, 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 techniques, technologies, tactics, schemes, plots, and ploys. And so one of the things, I didn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. One of the things that I've maintained is my understanding of warfare and how complicated it can be. And in my understanding of warfare, what I do know is that the devil has different approaches, but he also has different apparatuses that he applies to different lives, stories, plots, and things that are meant to be lived out. And one of the things that I think is common is that people think that because when they are hurt, when they are wounded, when their feelings are hurt, when their perspectives are hurt, when they're caught in a motive or confronted on an issue, victimization is a wile of the devil, because everybody wants to be the one that needs to be vindicated. That's a bastard orphan cry. And then on the other, nobody wants to take responsibility for what happened to them. And I've been saying this for several years now. There are things that will happen to you that is not your fault. Nobody's arguing that. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. But you do want to be careful about who you get close to during a traumatic season or a traumatic experience or a traumatic event. That trauma bonding will make you feel like your overinvestment, your confiding in, your trust of, is closeness, is proximity, is reliable, and it's not, because the risk is your healing. The risk is your healing. If I heal and I start to change in what I desire, what I expect, how I mature, how I evolve in my palate, in my appetite, and I start needing you differently, will you be insulted by my growth or by my healing? By my moving forward. This is why certain friends don't last past high school years or college, or past being on the Divine Nine and crossing over in your frats or your sorors. Or this is why I'm assuming that there is a such thing as a church friend. I just think they're friends. Those of you that have the church friends, it's hilarious to me, because I think if you have a church friend, that means you have a church persona and a church self, which means that you can turn it on and turn it off, and you might need prayer from bipolar or schizophrenia. I think if you're going to befriend me, you're going to befriend me with or without my tambourine and my choir robe. I digress. So I think that we've got to be very careful about how we value closeness and how we trust people with it, what we do to classify people for it, and that realize that closeness, intimacy, proximity, those are all investments and privileges. I will repeat. Closeness, investment, proximity, closeness, proximity, nearness, they are all investments, but they are also risks. You can't achieve those and you can't invest those and not run the risk of somebody doing it or handling it wrong. So a couple of wisdom points, and then I'll let you go to sleep or try. Number one, there is no such thing as any relationship that excludes risk. There's no such thing as a relationship without risk. All relationship will require risk. There will be risks. Risks of failure, risks of flaw, risks of misunderstanding, risks of miscommunication. So deeper question to ask yourself is, do I have a fear of risk? And if I have a fear of risk, is that why I think that people don't understand me? Because I like to live my life in security, certainty, and guarantees. And I understand it. We all do. We're humans who've been through things and face things that scare us, that make us afraid. But you can't love perfectly if you're walking knowingly in and with fear. Number two, you've got to be willing to admit when you got close to a person or allowed a person or a people to get close to you as a form of medicine, to medicate, appropriate, situate where you currently were without consideration to where you were going or where you were headed or what might be next. It's possible. It's dangerous to fall in love while you're broken. I don't want to mess with your sleep tonight, so I won't go. You know, when people start talking about dating and marriage, and I think this the one, she's the one, he's the one, I just laugh. I'm like, yo, you it's comical for most of the people that come to me about it, because I'm like, you still trying to learn to like you. And you're still trying to learn to express yourself. And you're still trying to learn to understand yourself. And now you're going to involve somebody else in this treacherous journey of education, which love is based on. Love is based on education. And you want to involve somebody in this experiment of yours and run the risk of ruining them and causing more trauma. And here's what trauma is. Trauma is an imprint. It is an information source on the heart, the mind, of the soul. So when something is traumatic, what it means is that you're going to remember it because of what it felt or what it caused. It leaves a stain. It embosses. It remains there. It is the forensic proof that something painful or abusive has occurred, traumatic. And trauma is a broad spectrum of things. There's a lot of things that can be traumatic. All of them are not necessarily bad as we would think. Success can be traumatic. Talent can be traumatic. I was looking at a gentleman the other day that I'm in a relationship with, and he was playing several instruments at once. And when I looked at him, I was like, oh my gosh, what did you do in your childhood? Because you can't be gifted to this degree and at this level and be easily understood as a child. Your gift had to have isolated you at some point. It's not easy to parent that. Now, the ungifted, the normal, the mediocre, the mundane, they won't understand that. But I know what it is to experience and bear the pain of a child prodigy, to have a gifting and ability that sets you apart from your peers in more ways than one, and what that means to live in that particular way and in that particular designation. There's no easy way to be Michael Jackson, and there's no easy way to be Prince, or there's no easy way to be Whitney Houston or Dr. King. There's no easy way to do that. Giftedness isolates you, and if you don't have people with the endurance emotionally, psychologically, to be there and to stay there and to commit to learning and guiding and guarding and protecting, then life gets real painful, and you often end up either in some cycle of lust or some cycle of uncontrollable addiction, because that's the plight of every gifted person who is learning to live in and with their gift. It is so. I've learned it. I've studied it. It's everywhere. That's how it's going to, because you're going to find something to medicate the pain of your personification and your designation. Anyway, so trauma bonds. I want you to think about why you continue to rotate in your friends, rotate in your dating life, rotate in your romantic life, your spiritual life. What about your appetites maturing? What is it teaching you? Or are you only committed to peace? Jesus said this, take up your bed walk. Take up your bed walk. Now, Jesus Christ has more ways to heal than we have to be harmed or hurt. And because I am a dutiful student of the Word of God, I understand that everything Jesus says is intentional, and everything that Jesus says is on purpose. I think that's Christian Bishop. I love you. I do. And Jesus told the man, I want you to rise and I want you to take up your bed and I want you to walk. I want to address your walking. Go ahead and walk. But take your bed with you. The excuse, the accoutrement, the enablement, the thing that helps you stay how you are. I've had to come to some hard truths over the last several weeks in my life. And I've been confronting some of my sons and daughters on this, but I've seen it in my own life. I'm an enabler. I think that because of my gift of generosity, thanks, Ma, and my gift of mercy and my gift of compassion, I think that in some ways my presence in people's lives has either dramatically caused them to increase and grow and soar, but in other cases, I think I've stunted them by being willing to be everything they needed to medicate who they were in their immaturity. I think I've been an enabler. And that's a hard conversation that you've got to kind of have with yourself, because when you are resistant or hesitant to cut off that is toxic, or when you do cut off something that is toxic and you feel bad about it, no matter how it impacts you or robs you or ruins you or drains you, you've got to take responsibility for whether or not, because here's the deal. When we think generosity, we do not think, Apostle Carnell, I love you. We do not think that generosity can have toxic repercussions, and it can. You can be so generous that it ruins people, spoils them. They get addicted to it, and because you want genuine, authentic love, compassion, you want to help people be their best or see their best. You think that's a part of your assignment. Then you end up allowing people to ride on your coattail, and then if you make the mistake of changing your coat, and you realize it was never you that they loved for real, it was what you did for them and how you sponsored them. And how you caused them to arrive on the back of your suffering and your education and your tutelage and your scholarship and your sacrifice. And in some cases, even your scandal, they stood on the back of that stuff. It's not fair. It's not right. But you're going to find that the Lord will allow you, and I feel this really strongly in my spirit for a lot of you watching, the Lord would allow you to undergo what will feel like a very unfair season for your maturity. If you're going to mature, you have to navigate through something that's going to feel unfair or unjust. Nobody matures, nobody gets seasoned if they can only handle what they feel like is equitable, right, reasonable, comprehensible. You have to navigate through the unfair. When you navigate through the unfair, you find a brand new focus. Sometimes it takes the unfair to help you find a brand new principle, something else to concentrate on, something else to focus on. And navigating through the complex does something to your intellect, your intelligence, how you see, what you think. You've got to be willing to do it. If you're not, you have very little endurance, very little resilience, very little emotional capacity and bandwidth. Your spiritual gifts won't operate in the way that they should or could if you can't handle that type of warfare. So I just want you to know that in a trauma bond, there's very little that should be trusted. Is the only thing we have in common is what hurt us. Is that what's joining us? Or is it mutual desire, mutual commitment to growth, to evolution? I'll grow with you. We can argue and move on. We can disagree and move on. We can have a weird season and get through it. I'll forgive you if you forgive me. We can go to the next level together. We can have periods of time where we're understanding each other and the dealings of the Lord on our lives, and not use running, abandonment, disconnection, abortion as our escape route to protect ourselves. Because in a trauma bond, what you'll learn is this, and I'll let you go. People want to protect their condition. They want to stay how they are. I know you don't think this, and I know you think I'm just talking. There's a whole kind of person that wants to remain as they are. A whole category of people that is disinterested in changing. Healing is more scary than remaining how they are. Because if I remain how I am, where I am, then I get the right to be as ruthless, as reckless, as rebellious, as inconsistent, self-seeking, self-searching, self-serving as I am, without being accountable to anything. Because pain does not like accountability. I hope you heard what I said. All right. Well, this has been Dr. Matthew Stevenson. I love you so very much. This is good. You can go ahead and pay me what you would have paid your psychologist. I'm just kidding. And I'm going to commit myself to studying the ministry of the word and prayer to prepare myself for Sunday morning, All Nations Worship Assembly of Chicago, 7359 South Chappelle. It's going to be phenomenal. Or 310 Riverside Drive in New York City, New York. Either way, God's going to meet you at the point and at the place of your need. If I were you, I would look at your trauma bonds to see if you've got true intimacy, true connectedness, true relationship, or if you've got something temporary, and if you're giving Tylenol to something that requires surgery. All right, get some rest. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.